and pumped up his teammates. He played 95 games in an Leaf uniform, recording 10 goals and 30 points. His life was tragically cut short, but his time here was memorable. Brian Spencer left an impression on every Leaf fan of his time. Memories is brought to you by Chevy Trucks.
Who are the greatest Leafs of all time? Make the winning call with Bell as we celebrate the greatest Leaf players of all time. Tonight we profile Frank Mahovlich, one of a field of 19 Leaf greats as selected by the Toronto Maple Leaf Alumni Association.
The Big M, Frank Mahovlich, went from starting at St. Mike's to capturing the Calder Trophy in '58. By the time he left the Maple Leafs, he owned club records for left wingers in goals, assists, and points. He even set the Leafs standard with 48 goals in the 60-61 season, waging a torrid battle with Boom Boom Geoffrion in pursuit of immortal Rocket Richard's magical mark of 50. Mahovlich was a 6-time All-Star as a Leaf and a powering force, slap shot and all in 4 Stanley Cups. The Hockey Hall of Fame welcomed him in '81. Number 27, Frank Mahovlich, an all-time great Maple Leaf.
Cast your ballot to win one of over 70 fabulous Bell Prize packages. Go to your nearest Bell Phone Center store, Maple Leaf Gardens, or the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Dependable, longest-lasting trucks on the road.
Our focus turns to the 1964 semifinal series between the Maple Leafs and the Canadiens. All tied at 3 games each. The venue, the Montreal Forum, what looked like a distinct advantage for the Canadiens. But through Dave Keon's brilliance, the Maple Leafs were able to overcome that perceived disadvantage. His 3 goals were all the Leafs needed in a 3-1 victory. Then, 2 weeks later in Toronto, they would win their 3rd Stanley Cup in succession, and Dave Keon would play a vital role. In a career full of highlights, this Game 7 may well have been his best. Memories is brought to you by Chevy Trucks. Chevy Trucks, like a rock.
19 Leaf greats as selected by the Toronto Maple Leaf Alumni Association.
Still only 18 when he played his first game as a Maple Leaf, Harvey Busher Jackson sparkled on the left side for the famous Kid line, eventually joining line mates Joe Primo and Charlie Conacher in Hockey's Hall of Fame. In 10 seasons as a Leaf, Jackson became the club's most prolific left winger, boosting the Leafs to their first Stanley Cup in '32. The same season he won the Art Ross Trophy as NHL scoring leader. A 5-time NHL All-Star, Jackson is the only Maple Leaf with 4 selections to the NHL first All-Star team. Number 11, Harvey Busher Jackson, an all-time great Maple Leaf.
Cast your ballot to win one of over 70 fabulous Bell Prize packages. Go to your nearest Bell Phone Center store, Maple Leaf Gardens, or the Hockey Hall of Fame for ballots and contest rules.
Played in the NHL for 9 seasons with 5 different teams. He was a member of the Philadelphia Flyers when they won their 2 Stanley Cups in 1974 and 1975. On December 11, 1977, Tom Bladen scored 4 goals and collected 4 assists to set a new NHL record with 8 points in a game. The other player to score 8 points in a game is the highest scoring defenseman in the NHL's history. Paul Coffey continues to be an offensive force, and on March 14, 1986, he collected 2 goals and 6 assists to tie Bladen's 9-year record.
Just one of those games where everything went right. Wayne was flying pretty high that game, giving me a lot of passes, and every time I passed it, somebody, the puck went in the net. It's just, you know, fortunate for me, I got 8, and it was one of those games where I probably could have had 10 or 12.
Tom Bladen and Paul Coffey, the only defenseman in NHL history to score 8 points in a game. 1967, and the Maple Leafs are not expecting any playoff miracles. Facing the awesome power of Chicago in round 1 was quite a chore. However, the performance of Terry Sawchuk may have provided that divine intervention. The Winnipeg native's final lunge at hockey's brass ring would be memorable in the annals of postseason hockey. Sawchuk spent much of the springtime making saves and soothing injuries, but he shook off the discomfort, and his unparalleled courage enabled the Leafs to defeat Montreal in a 6-game centennial final for their last Stanley Cup. 70 and 1975. Phil Esposito won 4 straight scoring titles, and he won the Hart Trophy in 1974. During Montreal's dynasty later in the decade, Guy Lafleur was the dominant player, winning 3 scoring titles and 2 Hart Trophies. In 1979, the Islanders' Brian Trottier won his only scoring title and MVP. The only other player to win the Hart Trophy in the 70s was Bobby Clark, who led the Flyers to 2 Stanley Cups and won 3 Hart Trophies in the process.
Well, the scoring title was never a high priority for me or for any of my teammates. Actually, under Shiro, we were taught that you play for the team, that the team wins and you're successful, and all of us believed and bought that, and it was successful for us all.
Bobby Clark, 3 Hart Trophies without ever winning a scoring title. The Maple Leafs have provided heroes, and Mahavlich was a powerful force off the wing. His best season in a Leaf uniform was 60-61 when he scored 48 goals. In Chicago, owner Jim Norris watched in awe and decided to make the Leafs an offer he hoped they couldn't refuse. The rights to the Big M for $1 million. Frank summarizes.
Well, I was shocked about it all. The morning of the deal, I received a phone call from my dad waking me up in the morning saying that I was sold to Chicago for $1 million, and I had to check with the paper if it was 100,000 or $1 million. I wasn't too sure in the zeros.
What a combination that would have been in Chicago. Hull and Mahavlich. We remember that famous offer tonight on Memories, brought to you by Chevy Trucks. Chevy Trucks, like a rock.
Great 1951 Stanley Cup final. Here's a film taken from the seats. This is home video, if you will, of the goal that Bill Barilko scored. There it is. Maybe the most famous goal ever scored in Maple Leaf Gardens, certainly one of them, and that won the Stanley Cup for the Leafs. And there's the photograph, one of the angles of it, as Bill played his last game. And, of course, his...
Multi-sport star Syl Apps excelled in hockey, football, and pole vaulting, rising to Canadian and British Empire champion before placing 6th at the 36 Olympics. A Maple Leaf stand-up from 36 to 43. He returned from the war to star again from 45 to 48, retiring after leading the Leafs to the Stanley Cup for the 3rd time. 5 times an NHL All-Star center, the 4th Leaf captain was highly skilled and classy, a Calder and Lady Byng recipient. He entered the Hockey Hall of Fame in '61, while the Leafs paid tribute to his contributions in '93. Number 10, Syl Apps, an all-time great Maple Leaf.
Cast your ballot.
The 1951 final was a 5-game overtime marathon between Toronto and Montreal. The Leafs hero would be the last man to wear number 5 for Toronto, Bill Barilko. Like the previous 4 games, Game 5 went to extra time. This winning goal on a pass from Howie Meeker was shot on film from the stands by a fan. Barilko, as almost everyone knows, died in a plane crash the following summer, giving this goal a life of its own. It's our focus tonight on Memories, brought to you by Chevy Trucks. Chevy, one of the NHL's true greats. He only played 101 games in the blue and white, but it was Jacques Plante's stabilizing influence that enabled the Leafs to rise quickly in the early 70s. 7 shutouts, a 2.46 goals against average, and a tutelage of a young Bernie Perrant were his gifts to this organization and indirectly to the Philadelphia Flyers. In 1971, Plante joined the NHL's second All-Star team at a time when many thought he was well past his prime. But he took on his Leaf experience as a challenge and brought his abundant skills and savvy to enliven this team to success. One of hockey's true innovators, Jacques Plante's stay was short, but very sweet. He's our focus tonight on Memories, brought to you by Chevy Trucks.